Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Kurtzman, Master of Baker College from 1979 to 1984. This is not where I actually am. My study makes a terrible background, so this is the ballroom of the Ca Razzonico in Venice, from which I'm virtually speaking tonight. In any event, I wanted to share with you just a few recollections about Baker Shakespeare during the period when I was master. It's certainly one of my fondest memories were the Baker Shakespeare productions. When Kathy and I first arrived at Baker in the fall of 1979, there was some question as to whether there would be a Shakespeare play again that spring, whether the tradition would continue. As far as I was able to gather, the problem had been that it was a very small coterie of people, students who were involved with the Baker Shakespeare. And some of them were not from Baker itself. As I'm sure is still the case, the construction of the set and the set itself then occupied so much space in the commons for a lengthy period of time in the spring that there were a number of students who found it rather inconvenient and resented it. We, however, felt it was a really important part of Baker tradition. In the first place, of course, it was perfectly suited for in its architecture. The Commons architecture was perfectly suited for Baker for Shakespeare. And all of the colleges put on some kind of theatrical production once a year. But clearly, Baker Shakespeare was special in that regard. It was obviously the highest quality literarily of any of the productions that went on. And there were people across the campus who actually took it quite seriously. In fact, a number of the actors came from elsewhere on the campus. And that we felt was important because what it did was it brought people from other colleges into Baker. They were able to meet with Baker people, work with Baker people. Baker people were able to work with them and get to know them, and oftentimes visit their colleges. And it just created a wider range of contacts throughout the university among those who participated. And in fact, in the spring of 1980, there were many more who did take part in it from Baker itself. It was something that Kathy and I promoted and encouraged people to do, and a lot of those taking part in the spring production were in fact freshmen. So they enjoyed the experience a great deal, and then they wanted to continue to take part and to recruit others, and that helped keep the tradition going for what now is clearly quite a long time. The people would take part in a variety of ways. Not only were there the actors, but there were people who constructed the set, of course, designed and constructed, people who designed and sewed costumes, people who actually dealt with the makeup, people who were involved in rehearsals. And there were a couple of fellows who had a particular job, which they did every year while we were there, which scared the daylights out of us. And that is, they mounted temporary stage lights up on the beams above the floor of the Commons. Now, my guess is that that's about 30 feet up there. And they would climb up the wall on ladders and then climb onto the beams and climb out onto the beams, crawl out onto the beams, lift up these heavy lights and secure them to the beams and wire them. This took several days. And all the time I was so worried that one of them would slip and fall. And of course, that would have been absolutely tragic if one of them had, and it also would have been the end of Baker Shakespeare. Ultimately, we had some good luck with lights, and maybe there's some lights permanently mounted now. I don't know. But David Walraven, a community associate of the college, got the idea of instead of our having to scrounge around for lights every year, we should raise some money to buy our own lights, and Baker would own its own lights. So he set about on a campaign, a little capital campaign among alumni to contribute money to buy lights, and he was quite successful in it, and so we bought the first sets of Baker lights. However, it angered rather considerably the head of development, because the head of development controls very carefully who does what soliciting for donations under what circumstances, which is absolutely essential in any university. So she was rather upset about this. So I went over to see her about it, and we talked, and she understood what we were trying to do. She just didn't think it was the way to go about it. And I invited her to become a university associate of the college, which she did. And so she then in the future came to see plays and understood how important it was and how useful it was to have these lights that were in our own possession. I do remember several of the plays. The first one that we had was Romeo and Juliet in the spring of 1980. And I remember even the names of Juliet and Romeo. They both were freshmen from other colleges. Karen Chatfield played Juliet, and Robert Catterall played Romeo, and they were just ideal for the part. Not only were they good actors, but Karen was petite and very pretty, and Robert was a really good looking guy, a really handsome guy. And so they made the perfect couple for Romeo and Juliet. I also remember Merry Wives of Windsor. Don Lee, who was a member of Baker College, took part in that. And he also took part in other plays. And Don, when he graduated, actually moved to New York to try to become a professional actor in New York. Unfortunately, after a few years, he contracted AIDS and died from it. It was terrible. It was a real tragedy. We still think of it to this day. Think of Don and think of it with his loss with really great sorrow. Among the people who helped in the plays were Dennis Houston, and H.C. Clarke, who was professor of geology. I remember him playing the role of the comic Porter, just to a T, in Macbeth. It was just great. So during the whole course of our 5 years at Baker, we just really enjoyed tremendously the play. And because it was followed shortly after by the Renaissance Fair, the annual Renaissance Fair, Baker took on a certain atmosphere during the spring, which was really very lovely and I think very useful. And lots of people took part in the Renaissance Fair from elsewhere in the university as well. So in any event, I'm just delighted that the plays are continuing. You have one coming up this week. I wish you the very best of luck with it. Congratulate you on continuing the tradition and on this year's play. And I do so wish that I could be there to see it. So good luck to everybody, and good night from Ka Ratsoniko in Venice. Bye.